We're going live to Caracas, Venezuela, where the Electoral Chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice is holding hearings with the former electoral candidates of the July 28th elections as part of the investigation into the electoral process that is taking place in the country ever since the electoral day. At this moment, the Supreme Court of Justice is receiving new representatives from right-wing organizations and other organizations that participated in the elections of July 28th. Earlier today, the highest judicial authority of the country received representatives from right-wing organizations, among whom were Zulia Governor Manuel Rosales from a New Time Party, José Cartaya from the Democratic Unity Roundtable, and also José Calzadilla from the Movement for Venezuela. Also today it is expected the appearance of representatives from parties that supported former candidate Luis Eduardo Martinez from the Democratic Action. In this context, Edmundo González, who was a candidate for the Democratic Unity Platform, PUD, did not appear at the hearing in the Supreme Court of Justice Electoral Chamber, where he was expected to present earlier today the voting records from the presidential elections held on July 28th, thus disobeying an explicit mandate from the Supreme Court. According to the Supreme Court President, Carislia Rodriguez, warned that the failure to appear before the electoral chamber will have the consequences provided for in our current legal system. That's what she said. The extreme right registered for elections and put up election witnesses, but since before the electoral process, González already announced that he would sign fraud. This was even months after the celebration of the elections on July 28th, where over 20 million Venezuelans were called to go to the polls and exercise the right to vote. After the election day, after realizing they would not win, the far right choose to promote violence with the intention of starting a civil war in the country. We are seeing images of the President of the Supreme Court, Carislia Rodriguez, entering the courtroom and receiving the documents from the representatives and also from former candidates of the electoral process. Going back to the violence that was unleashed, promoted by the far right hours and days following the release of the election results that gave the victory to re-elected President Nicolás Maduro. Information released by the National Electoral Council. There was an outbreak of violence promoted by the extreme right between Monday and Tuesday of last week that did not have as protagonists peaceful citizens, students or trade unions. Most of the people who were arrested admitted that they didn't even go to vote on July 28th. The extreme right did not succeed in mobilizing workers or good people, but rather young men that were very violent. In the past days, during the violent protest, the culprits burned official facilities, government buildings, educational institutions, health centers, and monuments, among others. And this was all for the payment of sums. We were live to Caracas, Venezuela, where the Electoral Chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice is holding hearings with the 10 former electoral candidates of the July 28th elections as part of the judicial investigations into the electoral process, an inquiry requested by re-elected President Nicolás Maduro. This is all for the moment. Stay tuned with From the South.